Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome back to Faith Family Focus. I am your co-host, Faith Suggs, former Duke women's basketball player, and this wonderful man next to me is my father, Schaefer Suggs, a former NFL player with the New York Jets, as you can see by his shirt, and the Cincinnati Bengals, and has also served as VP and on the executive board for the NFLPA Chicago, also known as the RPFPC. Good morning, Dad.
Good morning, Faith. I don't think they can see my shirt. Yeah, there it is. But anyway, good morning. It is a wonderful morning. It was a wonderful weekend. So good to be back live. Um, and we have a great topic.
Okay.
We
Have
got-
you paid attention to the playoffs?
with
Because I
that,
forgot to ask you this. Have you been watching the WNBA playoffs?
you didn't let me finish my
Well, if we were to let you finish, we'd be here for another 30 minutes. Dragging, sir.
my goodness.
Our
Our crowd this morning.
WNBA playoffs, I guess is my
I
question.
have been watching the WNBA playoffs, and I watched the Sky game against Brooklyn, and it was the second game, and it was I think it was the largest margin of defeat in WNBA history. And it's just how they completely turned their game around. Some of us they can turn it on and turn it off because Brooklyn's no slouch. They're
Well, they're not Brooklyn, they're New York, but they play in Brooklyn.
playing Brooklyn. Okay.
Because remember, the Liberty used to be out. They used to play somewhere else. They used to play.
Oh, got you. Stand corrected.
Yeah. This isn't Brooklyn is new to the New York Liberty. New York is good for sure. Sabrina Ionescu's good. They're young, talented. They have that one guard who has like eyes in the back of her head. Like I think she's amazing. She's from overseas. But New York wasn't gonna do anything this year. I think Chicago was sleepy the first game, and then we saw what happened. So they've advanced. They're on to the next final, the semifinal or whatever they call it. Seattle's moving on. There's only 3 games or 4 games or something.
They have one more game. They still got to win in Brooklyn. The Sky still have to win in Brooklyn. That's Tuesday.
Yes, they play one more game. It's over.
Yes.
But the Storm advanced, and the Aces have advanced. I apologize.
Cool.
The Storm and the Aces have advanced because there was a sweep, which didn't really surprise me. But that Washington Mystics game with Elena Deladon and the Seattle Storm with Sue Bird was very interesting.
What was interesting about it?
Sometimes I think because Elena Deladon has been so hurt for the last year. Yeah. We haven't really seen or heard from her. Right. And I think when she played the other night, I was like, oh, there she goes. We remember now why she's head and shoulders above. Because we were in a conversation, who's better, Breanna Stewart or Elena Deladon? Who would I rather have? Breanna Stewart, just off athleticism and speed, but who's a better shooter? I would say Elena Deladon. And Elena Deladon is just taller too, I think.
Yeah, and I think she's always been a great basketball player. I think she's been off the radar because of her injuries, and it's good to see her playing back at the level that she was played at. So, yeah, it's exciting. It's going to be who's your prediction to win the WNBA final championship?
I think the Sky are really good.
Okay.
I think the Sky. I think they can do a repeat. Everyone's rooting for Seattle because of Sue.
Okay.
Sue's last season.
Is Taurasi still playing? I know she got hurt.
No, she's out. Okay. I can't remember what the injury was.
Okay.
She was, and I don't care if people get mad at me. She was terrible this year. In terms of,
she was terrible. She even admits she was terrible.
Yeah, it was bad. It was just, and then they had that drama where they wanted to trade Skylar Diggins early in the year because there was some discourse between.
Discord?
No, discourse. That's the correct word. Between Mercury and Diana Taurasi and Skylar Diggins.
Gotcha.
And that was a thing, and they put it on ESPN, and then there were rumors that Skylar Diggins, they were looking to trade Skylar Diggins, but Skylar Diggins was the leading scorer. It was a mess. It was just a mess. It was just, sometimes you got to let the reins go.
Yeah. Cool. So well, that's the WNBA playoffs. I'm really watching it this year.
Pick?
What's that?
Who's your pick?
Hi.
Yeah, I guess that's everybody's pick.
Yeah,
well, they picked the Aces. Becky Hammond's first year led them to the playoffs.
Right. So it's going to be good. I just hope it's a good. I hope it's a good. This builds off of the momentum that was created last year, and the excitement from last year. And I hope that the finals draw as much attention, media wise and fan wise, as it did. Yeah, I hope it doubles. So I see a tremendous amount of progress in women's sports, especially WNBA, because they've been working at it. They've been really constantly moving the needle, really pushing the narrative in terms of what they deserve and equity and all that stuff. So I'm just really happy to see that.
Well, what the viewership it went up 16% since last year.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a lot. 16% on viewership, and that's because now they're more on ESPN, they're more on CBS, they're more on ABC.
The main television station. I was watching it. It was on ESPN, on channels on ABC, and then also I love the coverage. The coverage is really good. The announcers, the commentating is very good, and it's interesting because there's people that you actually played with or you've met. What's the girl that you were at camp with in Tennessee? That's doing a good job on ESPN.
Oh, Andrea Carter.
Yeah, she's doing a phenomenal job. So that's happy to see. I'm glad to see them doing well.
It is. 16% is a big deal. It's a big deal for women's sports in general, all of women's sports. But we said this. We've been saying this for about 2 years now. Put them on TV, people will watch.
Right.
Beautiful stuff. So, yeah, WNBA playoffs continue tomorrow, and then the rest of this week, and then there should be a crown mid-September or early September. Really, the WNBA flies by. The playoffs fly by.
Okay. I want to take a minute and talk about the NFL. The NFL is starting. There's a lot of stuff going on with the Cleveland Browns. There's stuff going on with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I just want you, okay, we got 5 minutes. I want to talk about this, about the Cleveland Browns situation. And what is your opinion in terms of is he getting sufficient amount of punishment? Should he be playing at all? Is he not accountable? And I know the answers to it. I was very disappointed in his press conference. I actually was mortified of his response in his conference.
Are we? Come on now. We shouldn't be surprised by that.
What you're saying is, and this is what disturbs me. As soon as he throws a couple touchdowns,
it's over.
Everybody's gonna forget about it.
Yeah, welcome to the life of women. O.J. Simpson walks free. Come on now.
Okay. So you want to spend about 5 minutes on that, or you just want to just move on?
No, we can talk about it in a second. I think the Browns are in a situation. I don't know why they did that. I really don't.
And they did it. They front loaded his contract, knowing that this would possibly happen. So he's still getting a tremendous amount of money. So the $5 or $6 million that he's getting, that they're taking away from him, it's like, I know that was a lot of money, I know, but compared to what he's getting, it's like a drop in the hat.
I think he doesn't have endorsements for sure. That's gone. It's out the window because there's no way he should have endorsements still. I can't see any Nike brand. I can't see any sane brand trying to deal with this right now. That's why I was very surprised when the Browns did it. But I don't know. The NFL, for some reason, has this reputation where they want to be a space of rehabilitation for broken toys. We've known that. We've seen that. We've seen it by how the guys, when they retire, what they look like. There's a reason, because the NFL is a Band-Aid for the problem. Deshaun Watson is an issue. There's no question that he did it or not. We've all come to that conclusion. He basically has said it, that he did it. He didn't openly admit that it was bad, but he said, I did something and then there were no problems. So why is there problems now? Weirdo. I think the NFL should have suspended him. I don't think he should be playing. I think he should still be getting some money. No question at the end of the day, because he did do great stuff leading up to his issues. And everybody still has to eat and feed their families, whatever. pay their mortgage. I
Plus,
think.
plus his victims. I mean, they're getting money too. So fortunately, they can get, and who else knows who's going to come out of the woodwork. But that's good.
Well, once we got to 20 plus, it was like, all right, guys. Normally when you get to 20 plus, it's like, okay, someone's lying, but no one, they still can't find a lie. It's very sad. It's kind of like, oh, he's a weirdo. So now we've accepted he's strange, right? He's a different quirk to him. Still extremely talented, but I'm just telling you, are people going to come to it? I mean, here's the thing. Who's the main audience of NFL football? Men. So their target audience really isn't taking a hit at the end of the day. Like the Browns, the NFL, they're not really losing money in comparison if they had to, something against their target audience. So it's not really an issue. It's just, how will ticket sales reflect? I don't know. Who's going to watch those games? I don't know. We won't know until maybe game 1, regular season, what it really looks like surrounding the Browns organization, what the players start saying in press conferences, what the coaches start saying. Stuff is going to continue to come out, and it's going to be very interesting because if the Cleveland Browns are in a way of we want to rehabilitate this young man's life, you can't rehabilitate somebody who still hasn't owned up to his issues. So, no, it just seems like a mess, and it seems very forced. And it seems like they're just trying to not sweep it on the rug because you can't sweep this under the rug. This is going to be around for a while. He's going to be a tagline for years. It's like when Tiger Woods with the car and the golf clubs and the 10 different women. And how long did the news talk about Tiger Woods? Years. So we're going to be hearing Deshaun Watson's story for years. Tiger Woods didn't abuse women, but we're still going to hear Deshaun Watson. I don't know. It's just, to me, what was originally the 9 games, and then they had the nerve to go, okay, now it's 11 games. And it was kind of like, well, then what do we wait for?
Oh, it's 6 or 9. Okay. But I think, so he'll be back in November.
Yeah. He'll play this season.
Right.
He'll play this season. Right. So he's only taking, a year off?
Right. Well, I don't want to spend too much more time on it. I just wanted to get, things are going on in the NFL. Like I said, people always want my opinion about the teams right now. And right now, teams are trying to formulate the rosters. So, you're not going to really know until we get into the season, 2 or 3 games into the season. Yeah. You're really not going to know who's got momentum, because right now they're trying to formulate their rosters. And so when you see preseason games, you're really not seeing the team. You're seeing
who wants to make the team, right? My thing is, and this is a question, I guess this is what people should be asking of you, is Deshaun Watson an asset or a liability for the Cleveland Browns organization?
He's an asset. Because the reality is, the only reason he's in that environment because potentially they want to win someday. And having him there, he's got to be there. He's got to build the relationships with the guys. He's got to exemplify, his value in terms of a football player. Football players can departmentalize it real easy on the field, off the field stuff. Right?
Yes, 100%.
They can't. They might not feel it, but they're not going to. They're not going to verbalize it. You're not going to hear too much of it. But I think it's good for him to be there. Hello, Kenny. It's one of my favorite people, Kenny McReynolds.
Okay, so I guess my question for you is also this, and then we can move on. As a former player of the NFL, right? You're talking about you guys are all alumni of this organization. When things like this come out routinely, when the situations against Kaepernick routinely, when the situations where we have dusted domestic violence under the rug, all these stereotypes that surround the NFL. Let's be honest. The stereotypes that surround the NFL are different than the stereotypes that surround the NBA and all the other organizations in sports. How does it make you feel that this is basically building fire and, giving you evidence towards a corrupted situation that routinely probably happens in professional sports? Obviously you aren't proud of it, but there's that you came from that. You supported that. You played in that. right? And at the end of the day, this could be a way of rewarding a stereotype, unfortunately.
Not rewarding the stereotype, validating the stereotype.
Validating.
I think you're right. I mean, it's an environment culture all the way back to that first movie, North Dallas 40. The perception, the movie Any Given Sunday, all these old NFL movies that gives you a very what's the word I want to use? Distorted version of what everything you saw in those movies happened, but do they happen all the time? What's happening now, Faith, is what happened from the beginning is that we got social media. And you're hearing about it more. I truly feel though there's definitely a paradigm shift in terms of there's enough quality individuals in the league that are striving towards something positive. But you're always in every sport, you're going to always have this type of situations. The NFL, professional football, is the leading sport in our country. Okay, it is by far the leading sport in our country, the National Football League, and so it's going to get most of the attention. You got more players or more chances for things to happen, do I condone it? No. I mean, the reality is, it's unfortunate, but I don't think it. I think it's just it validates, and I think from me coming in from the inside out, I mean, from your point from the outside in, through my lens and through my world, okay, there's some really good individuals, good fathers, good coaches that have been warriors, that have really fought through and made the transition in light of some of the stuff that they've had to deal with. The concussions, the lack of health care, the lack of benefits. There's a lot that goes on that we don't talk about enough. And so I'm going to support the brotherhood, support the progress that's being made. Unfortunately, we live in a world of social media, and there's behaviors there, and I can go down a list that I don't condone. I mean, there's things that have happened that's just disgusting,
But you're so right? One bad apple shouldn't spoil the bunch. But unfortunately, and this is as a woman, I've met with 20, 25 women of color, white women, LGBTQ women, women of all AAPI, who have worked in the NFL, and it is a toxic space for women.
And the fact that the Washington Redskins are getting punished, that they're finally making strides on accountability.
The Washington football team.
The Washington, no, the what are they?
The Washington football team.
No, they have a name, Commanders, right? But the fact that so we're making progress. We're making progress. I mean, we're not nowhere near, because you know what, Faith, it's an enabling environment. It's an environment that's
more women working in it. This is not just football. This is every other. When we talk about you and I talk about diversity on a regular scale, right? We talk about it all the time. Having women at those tables to say, this is what it's going to look like if you give him only 11 games. And everyone's like, well, we got to weigh the pros and cons. And this is really the Brown situation. And we'll have them handle it in-house. By doing that, yes, you're enabling. And you're not just enabling, right, the Deshaun Watsons of the world, right? Because he's like one of like a billion just situations that we have to deal with in this country and the world. But also you're enabling the people to discriminate against women, to treat women like they talk too much, or they can't be trusted in the locker room, or media shouldn't be in the locker room that are women. It trickles, right? It trickles. So every decision you make as an organization impacts how every single person in your organization treats people beyond just at a masseuse parlor. So that is the only issue with this. And this is, okay, I guess this is what my real thing was. When you make statements and when you make movement as an organization, it has to be correct. It has to be. and this was not correct. It was just a Band-Aid, right? And because of that Band-Aid, it once again, the NFL had an opportunity to look at this progress we have made. Look what we're doing. We have a no tolerance policy towards discrimination, which racially they have an issue, sexism, they have an issue, right? It's all I'm saying is when you make decisions, it has to be correct. This was not the correct decision. And because of that, it impacts every single person, former players, current players, media, coaches, all that. It impacts every single person.
And as difficult it is to hear you say this, it's true. Okay,
it's hard.
And from my lens, I just hopeful that we continue to make strides. That nothing's bigger than football. Well, you know what? There are things bigger than football.
Unfortunately, there are, because if it wasn't bigger than football, we wouldn't be making the money we'd be making as professional athletes. That's the beauty of it, right? Treat them like superheroes. That's also the pros and cons of life. But that's why I said, when you put these people in positions of power, it's the being commissioner. No one wants that job. Just like no one wants to be the president of the United States. No one wants that job until they get in. They're like, okay, you get paid the big bucks for the hard decisions. This one you had to get right. That's all. So they got to correct it somehow this season. But that was my main thing. It's just everything impacts everything. You always got to have that mindset towards things.
Right. No, I agree. Like I said, difficult it is to hear. I've lived in it. It's true. I've seen it from the inside out. I've seen the enabling. I've seen the enabling of, and unfortunately, it's crippling to the development of these young men as they make their transition from an active player to a former player. That's why some of them have a very difficult time making the transition. That's why a lot of college players have a hard time making the transition because they are bigger than life in terms of because they were football players, whether in college, whether in football. People. This has been going on since the beginning of time, right?
Yeah, you have the resources. You have the Olivia Popes in the world, right? And when you're an athlete, regardless of what sport it is, you constantly have resources to rely on, to call to. Like if you don't have your driver's license or your passport, there's people who solve that for you when you're an athlete, right? I don't have my passport. I have to be out of the country in a month. They're like, all right, we got it.
You remember in our episode Behind the Face Mask, when I told you the guys thought that as long as they had money in as long as they had checkbooks, they thought they still had money in the bank. Wait a minute, I still have checkbooks. Just teaching them what you call financial literacy. But I know that environment because I was one of them. And unfortunately, with now, I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but within the NIL, these kids are being more exposed to, that earlier now. Mm-hmm. And it's important that we get the right people around these kids to not perpetuate, and again, that word validate the negative stigma behind athletes.
Yeah. There's one thing I want to leave here because I feel like I wouldn't be doing my duty if I didn't mention this situation. Imagine, and I want to say this, the NFL has taken amazing strides. Professional men's sports have done an amazing job trickling women in, adding them to the fold. There's more athletic trainers than ever before, right, that are women. But what is the one safe space that you guys talk crazy, funny, the locker room and the training room, right? Normally those are in the same hallway. So say I'm a woman's athletic trainer and there's a couple of guys talking about Deshaun Watson's situation. And you don't see me as a woman because I'm in the locker room and the training room. And you say something offensive, something you find funny, it doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't.
It's because they didn't nip it in the bud early, nip it impact, not just that athletic trainer, but those men that think that it's okay. It's so much bigger. So just understand, like I said, that's all I was saying. You understand. That's why the people get paid the big bucks to make the really, really hard decisions. Right. And that one didn't seem very hard.
Well, I'm proud that you are my daughter. And I know that hopefully, because I'm your father, that you understand how important what you're saying is to me, and that I've only exemplified that. I've only shared that with you, and then and in terms of from my world and how I understand how important it is to have these very important conversations right now in terms of respect. You know?
Yeah. It's just we're such an important time right now, and we're gonna talk about like sibling relationships, but like similar to like how you are with family, you know how sensitive it is. If you say something hurtful, that person will carry it with them through their entire lives. They'll still love you, but they'll carry that hurtful comment, that hurtful moment, they remember, right? We talked about forgiveness 2 weeks ago. People forgive, but they don't forget. So in these type of situations, when you make decisions like this, when you make movement, right, you're making something that everyone's watching and you drop the ball, that's a big deal. I don't know if they lost billions of supporters. I really don't think so. For some reason, people like to sit there and watch American NFL football. But the target audience is men. They're not even watching CNN.
So I disagree with you. The audience, women, because of fantasy football, because of, the audience is a very large.
There's a lot more women than there are men, and the discrepancy between men to women is still here. Let's not forget that. So we can say, yeah, women are watching, and they're still down here, and the men are up here. So who's really watching the NFL? American men, probably between the ages of 25 to 65. That big old gap of demographic of men. Okay, women, yes, fantasy football. Women like football. I'm not saying women don't watch football. I watch football. Am I watching Cleveland Browns? No. That's done. So you can see now, oh, look at target audience. And I am someone who's very lenient. I'm still watching the NFL. There's women who are like, no.
I know.
Change it. Change it. The enabled man, like Sean Watson. All right, so we're talking about the importance of sibling relationships today. We had an amazing show 2 weeks ago about forgiveness. Walking through the 7 steps of forgiveness, the 4 R's of forgiveness. If you missed it, you can scroll down on our Facebook. It's right down there. We also re-aired it last week because I thought it was such a great show. But this week, we're talking about sibling relationships and the power of them and what they bring to your life. And you have 3 siblings. I have one who some have seen before, Devin Suggs. And for people who don't know, he doesn't watch the show. He just doesn't know what's going on until we tell him, yeah, we had a great show. And he's like, you guys had a show today? So understand that he's here. He just, the guest appearance once in a while. But we're having an amazing show today about sibling relationships. And Dad, why you brought this topic to me last Monday. Why and what sparked your mind to want to have a conversation about this?
Well, the importance of one as a father, and I remember how important it was for my mom to make sure that we stay connected as siblings, and there was friction between me and my brother Clint most of the time, right? But it really hurt her heart for us not to be communicating. We did, but I had boundaries. I put boundaries. But the most important thing is my relationship with my brother Mike. As I went through my loss, because he went through a loss, and my sister Veronica, who was actually was in the same class because I missed a year of school because I had pneumonia, and we were very close. We continue to be very, very close, and I don't ever think the 3 of us ever had a disconnect in terms of not talking to each other for a long period of time. And that's why that was so important to me. The other thing is my biological dad, Erich Barnes, passed away. He has 4 other kids, and it was interesting how they wanted to own me as a brother. And this is my brother, but up until this point, there was never any acknowledgement of it. And it just really bothered me, that I'm not am I obligated to build a relationship with them? Trying to figure that out. Because it was more like, okay, I'm the celebrity now that still exists. Now you want to tell everybody that you're my brother, right? To me, having a brother and a sister is deeper than that. It's just like father. Just because somebody is your biological father doesn't give them the right to be a dad or a father. And I say the same thing about siblings. And I had one sister, I had one brother. Unfortunately, I lost my brother Clint. But there's a lot that goes into what we want to talk about, in terms of the closeness that you have, the bond that you have. That's my brother Clint on the left and my brother Mike on the right. And there's something about that bond that goes all the way back to the beginning of the time you were siblings, the secrets that you have, the bond, the things that, you never tell your parents until like later on when we broke the picture window in our front yard and playing baseball when we wasn't supposed to be out. My parents never found out about it,
But how did they never find out about you breaking a window?
Because we replaced the window. There was another window that just like it in the basement. We took that window, put it back up, and took the window. It broke, took the glass out of it, put it in the back where they couldn't see it. And my father couldn't figure it out for 20 years. So when he went to go replace that window, they go, "What happened to this glass?" I don't know. By that time, we were able to tell.
The lie was so well constructed, there was no way your kids could even think of
it. But that's another thing, the collaboration as kids. I don't even want to know where you and Devin collaborated with me out not knowing, but there's a bond that you guys have. And now I see, as a father who wants to know everything, I kind of realize I don't have the right to know everything. The relationship you have with Devin is the relationship you have with Devin. The bond that you have with him, although it warms my heart, so you'll always hear me say, "Have you talked to Devin? Have you talked to Devin? Devin, have you talked to Faith?" The fact that he doesn't watch the shows, and when you guys are not watching each other's progress, or I see, because now, I want you all to be there, just like you were when we were working out in the gym, and he's off to the side with the basketball, being forgotten. Then we get a couple dribbles in, it's like we're always together. And now I thought, having this show, as you guys have, and as our lives have changed, you're beginning to formulate your own ideas, your own lives, redefine your relationship as a brother and sister, and then how, as a father, as a parent, I have to honor that, I have to love that, and I have to respect that. And that's why I thought this would be a really good topic to talk about.
Yeah. No, that was great. And we have two major points on it. And this one is, and this is what I want to start with, so we can probably discuss this a little bit. But what is a good sibling relationship? And we used an article from Play, Learn, Thrive with Alana Gala. She says, respect, to talk it out, to be truthful. Respect is the glue that keeps relationships strong. In a good sibling relationship, siblings understand that they have different thoughts and opinions, good and bad days, but communication is critical. I think communication is kind of like collaboration. I think, God, it's so funny. I think when it comes to siblings, communication looks like many different things. It's not just like talking. I think communication sometimes is an unspoken language between siblings. Looks, understanding certain things, laughing at certain inside jokes, right? Those to me can serve as communication in siblings, because oftentimes siblings, they are the one human on earth who knows your entire blueprint. Like, they know exactly where you come from, why you say this, why you act like this, why you tripped on the left foot over the right foot. These are things they see about you for years and years and years, because they've known you longer than anybody else. And I think that is like communication. Communication is like the unspoken, it's unspoken talking between two people. And I think sibling relationships are something that you can only really find that because you have the same blueprint. You have the same makeup. And that's what, when you're talking about acknowledging siblings who maybe aren't blood, or acknowledging siblings who are half brothers or sisters, right? And understanding sometimes you feel the bond and sometimes you don't.
Right.
And the reason behind that is because sometimes you're raised differently. Devin and I had the same childhood up to teenage years. Because from when I left the house then you and Devin created your own different kind of situation, your own parenting style, your own. It was a guy's house, right? You guys were like friends. And that was the thing. It's probably good that I left the house so you guys could do your bonding, right? Because you guys, Devin was a mommy's boy. Devin is very much attached to mom's side, right? And so him having the opportunity to then have years with you, him and I had somewhat of the same understanding. Because if mom had still been alive, you still would have been coaching me. We still would have had our bond. But Devin would have still been very much connected to mom. And so him and my perspective on you could have been different. And it not like wildly different, but just different perspectives, right? You coach me one way, coach him differently. Or you coach him way, and it's just, so his perspective and my perspective are very much similar in blueprints. And that is the reason why I feel like we are close now. Because he's the one person that understands why I think the way I think, why I do the things I do, little things. And that to me is just the best part of communication, because he understands me. So like communication, like to talk out your issues, we don't really talk out our issues. If Devin has, and like, you may think this, like, I don't know, but like when you have a sibling, the way you talk out your issues is like, are you good? Or you just, you say a funny joke. Because for some siblings, that's their way of communication. I think for some other siblings, it's harder to talk about their issues or talk about the things that are bothering them. So I think every relationship is different. You can probably talk to Veronica about things differently than you can talk to Mike about things, right? That's just, I think, is something that unfolds when we talk about communication.
Mm-hmm. What role have you had over? Has your role changed over the last 4 years with your relationship with your sibling, with Devin?
Well, Devin's so much cooler now. Devin was not cool when he was younger. Does that make sense? And I'm not saying like because Devin was always been funny, right? No question about it. Came out the womb that way. But Devin wasn't an adult yet, right? So now he's an adult. So him and I can joke about things that he gets. Or he's about to be 21 next
September 1st.
Next week. He's about to be 21 years old. So now it's a completely funnier thing, right? Because now he's legal to do everything. So now he's going to be funny. Now he's going to be like asking me questions that he never would have asked me before. Or, you know what I mean? It's just now we continue to open doors in our relationship, and that just gets more fun. Because I feel like we were apart for so long because I was at college for 4 years when Devin was in his high school years. So I only saw one high school football game. I only saw, I wasn't really around to see who he was becoming. So in the last years when he started going to college, now we've gotten really close because he's also kind of isolated. So he's like building his own, what he likes to do, who he likes to hang out with, like his little circle, right? Like we hear him mention that all the time. So for me, our relationship has gotten significantly closer, and my role has become more of a friend in comparison to a sister in the last 4 years, as he's become more cool, grown up, mature. He like watches the news, you know what I mean? Like he knows what's going on in the world. So I can talk to him about things. In comparison to 6-7 years ago, Devin was still in youth minded. He was still in middle school. He was still in high school. He was still trying to figure out what he like, did he like Jordans or not? We remember that, right? So just watching him grow into like more of a friend for me has significantly been different and it has everything to do with age completely.
I was going to ask you that question. 4.5 years apart, I think is perfect.
We're 4.5, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And do you ever think that was there any sibling rivalries? Because I maybe had a little bit of that. I know on mommy's side, there was a lot of that.
They were closer in age. Mm-hmm. You guys are closer in age. We're 4.5 years apart. It doesn't even make sense to have. The sibling rivalry is Faith has always been better than Devin at everything because I came first. I was older. I was stronger than him when he wasn't strong. I was taller than him than when he wasn't tall. And there was never a situation where it was like, oh, she's growing faster than me. We're 4.5 years apart. Of course I am. So there was never really any animosity, even now, right? Like we'll say, well, I'll be like, Devin, you know, I'm the favorite child. And he'll just laugh because he's like, whatever. Devin has never had, he has always had the ability to kind of just be his own thing. And so there was never any sibling rivalry, ever.
Right.
My only issue with Devin sometimes is that he just wasn't cool. I told you that. Devin was like, we would have a grown-up conversation and Devin's attention span like this. But he's always been very mature for his age. I won't say that. So we've always had the ability to like hang out. Devin and I hang out. We've always hung out. No question. Or he'll call me and he'll just be on the phone now. But like sometimes he just likes to call and be in silence. Or if he just thinks about something random and he'll be like, did you ever think back when we were 12, that one time? And that's Devin, right? So our 4.5 years apart, there wasn't really sibling rivalry because it wasn't, if he was going to be mad about his sister who was 4.5 years older than him being taller than him, we had more issues in the box than we thought.
Yeah.
You know? So, but you were closer in age. So your situation signal, I think age is a big deal in terms of competition.
Right.
Because he beat us.
Yeah. So what is a bad sibling relationship? What is it? What happens with that? You know?
A bad sibling relationship is characterized by constant fighting, not being there for each other, and being selfish. And this can extend from childhood into adulthood, where children grow up and never talk to each other. That's what we're just talking about.
Yeah, that breaks my heart. You know, and I know it happens.
From competition, or do you think it stems from, I don't want to say, I'm not, that's not, don't put behind this, but bad parenting? What do you think?
I do. I agree with you. I mean, there's people in our lives right now that the siblings are not talking to each other. It breaks my heart. You know, it just breaks my heart. You know, and I don't understand that. You know, I mean, life is. I think a lot of it because significant loss we've had. You know that life is way too short not to figure things out. But you're right. It gets back to where their relationship is formulated and the parents' role in helping with that communication and that ability to resolve issues, you know?
Yeah.
So bad parenting, right? Because that's what I found is that.
I think you never pinned us against each other, but every single thing we did was competitive. There's a big difference. Our competition was never, and the reward was never your attention. Everybody got attention, but there happened to be competition. And I think that because of that healthy balance, sometimes that's not the case all the time. Sometimes the competition is in place so that they can get closer to a parent, so they can get more attention. We were lucky there was only 2 of us too, right? So we're talking about it's a lot harder when people have 4 kids, 3 kids, 5 kids. It's really hard because there's only 2 parents. So giving every single person individual equal love is hard to do. And what do you do to keep kids entertained? They play with each other, but oftentimes it's like, all right, go race, go play horse, go do this. And because of that, they want to know when you run back in the house, who won, right? Do you remember all like, who won? I did. I won, right? I always won. But that's because I was 4.5 years older. And so we never, ever made Devin feel bad about losing or, you know what I mean? Or never winning, because it was kind of like, look at how close you are to beating Faith, right? You're already almost beating a teenager, Devin. You're almost taller than this. It was always positive reinforcement. And sometimes that's not the case. And that's not completely bad parenting. I think it's just something like it's hard to do. It's
well,
really
something that warms my heart is I would watch you as you were a fan. So when he got older, he got high school, he was taller than you. You guys would compete with each other. You almost say, okay, this is what we want. It wasn't like, oh, he finally beat me. It was like, wow, you know, you're more proud than you were like anything else.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is my brother. I'm proud of my brother, right? He can shoot. And I would watch that. You would never like go in and soak. He finally beat me. Where you see that in siblings. You like.
Or I would cheat. He definitely wouldn't beat me. But it was because if I had lost, he would lose all respect for older people. I had to hold it down for the older people. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's just so important for you when we say communication. Like, some people, and we say this, and this goes beyond sibling relationships. This goes beyond everything. When you don't love yourself, when you don't feel you're doing enough, right? When you feel empty, and that comes from parenting, affirmations. We talked about that. We talked about love languages when parenting. When you feel the need to attack outward, right? In a lot of situations is because people aren't getting attention.
So you're frozen. So as you continue to talk, as I watched both of my kids grow up and I watched them how they formulate their relationships, Faith is 25, Devin is going to be 21. It just continues to bring me joy that they still have the ability to communicate in spite of, and a lot of their communication is without me. And as a parent, you always want that. You always want that. And I see, and I have enough friends that I love that I'm that I'm close with that I don't always see that, and I always advocate figure it out because life is so short. Whatever differences, and keep in mind, there's things that happen in our childhood that are conditions. Whether or not you were in an abusive environment, whether or not you were in an environment where there's alcoholism or drug addiction, there's divorces, there's a lot of determining factors that make it difficult to formulate and build relationships or maintain relationships with a sibling. So I do understand that. I can't relate to that, but I've observed it with friends. But continue, I haven't talked to my sister in 10 years. To me, I can't even imagine that. It's not part of the world that I ever lived in, but I know it exists. And it's unfortunate. And I thought maybe talking about this topic would hopefully just for somebody just to pick up the phone. Because God forbid something happens and that person is no longer here. You die with those unresolved, and these are just maybe little bitty things. But I do also understand that there's conditions as we grow up. Families are very different. We all come up in different environments. But I thought it was important to talk about this. And Faith, you froze, so I wanted to continue talking.
I hear you. I can hear you. I think one thing also in terms when you look at, I guess this is the question for you. How would you go about healing relationships after years and years of trauma, frustration, sometimes deceit, sometimes just disconnection? How would you go about that, and what have you seen works?
Well, I think you have to look yourself in the mirror, and a lot of it is forgiving yourself first, and sometimes it's hard to look at what our role was in a bad relationship, and I think in healing yourself sometimes takes care of a lot, because what it does, it puts you in a place where you can forgive. And that you are open to what your role is, your level of acknowledgement of the things that you were responsible for. In the recovery, they say make a list of people that you have harmed. Then the next step is, when it doesn't harm those other people, you make those amends, right? So having the willingness to repair a relationship first comes with repairing the relationship with yourself. So to answer to your question is you got to take care of yourself first. I got a very dear friend of mine that's going through a hard time. I said, you got to take care of you first, because if you take care of you, you will be a vessel of healing. And I think that's first. And then make that first phone call. Don't be afraid to humbly say, I'm sorry. and sometimes just listen. There's that quote that I always say, for who, and this is, I don't evangelize people, but this is the Bible, for who does not love their brother and sister whom they have seen cannot love God, whom they have seen. How good and how pleasant it is when God's people live together in unity, right? I mean, for me, it's spiritual, and God wants us to love each other. And I think getting back to the healing part, specifically, I think it's self-healing first, and that sets the foundation to be able to embrace healing with somebody else.
It's like, are you competent of growth? Do you have the ability to grow?
Yeah.
And having the ability to grow is understanding healing yourself can heal others. Growing yourself is healing yourself. It makes your life a lot easier, right? But also doing the work. It's called shadow work. That's what they call it these days. It's like a very intense form of therapy, form of just self-reflection, and seeing where you had a misstep, see where you maybe fell short in that relationship, in that situation, and what is it that causes you to still carry anger, hatred, frustration towards a sibling, let's say siblings. And I think it all comes from your own self-work, working at yourself, because you really cannot help others. You don't want to be an energy sucker. You want to be an energy giver. And I think sometimes we are like, well, that person's energy sucker too. And it's like that person isn't going or running the same race as you, right? So you have to always come high.
Yeah, right.
You have to. And that's only just to you. It may be if your frequency is so high, if your energy is so positive, their bad energy won't penetrate. And sometimes that's all people need to see to turn their lives around too.
Also, there's times, we talk about sibling unity and love. There's some time where you have to exclude. Yeah. You have to put up the boundaries. There's times where it's a condition, Yep. Unfortunate, that does happen.
100%. Sibling relationships. So to review, bad relationships, hatred, lying, frustration, the inability to communicate, good relationships, talking it out, respecting one another, having the hard conversations that you maybe don't want to have, but should have. And always, always, always watering the relationships so everyone can grow, including yourself. So great conversation today, per usual. Enjoy talking to everyone a little bit through, WNBA Playoffs, NFL, and sibling relationships, good, bad, great traits, and what it does for your life as well. Again, this is Faith Family Focus. We want to thank our key platform providers, E360 TV out of Phoenix, Arizona, Amazon Fire, YouTube, Facebook, Roku, Apple TV, goes way beyond that. This Faith Family Focus, we use our faith as a vehicle to help heal and sustain and strengthen others and their own family core. And of course, our slogan:
let go, let God, let go, let faith, and let go, let love.
Everyone have a wonderful Monday. See you soon.